Try standing up right now, wherever you are. Go ahead, push yourself up from the chair. And the moment you do, pay close attention to what happens in your legs. Did you notice it? That slight hesitation, that fraction of a second where the signal seemed to travel slower than it should, that small delay between your intention and your body's response. If you're past your 70th birthday, that pause is not your imagination playing tricks on you. It is your body sending a message through your circulation, a message that most people dismiss, ignore, or simply chalk up to the unavoidable march of time. But here's what the research actually shows. What you just felt is not inevitable. It is not a sealed fate written into your genetics the moment you were born. It is, in the majority of cases, the direct result of something specific, measurable, and correctable happening inside the walls of your blood vessels. And the solution is not what most physicians will tell you in a standard 15-minute appointment. My name is Dr. Leonard Graves, and for the past 3 decades, I've dedicated my career to studying vascular health in aging adults. The complex, often misunderstood relationship between how our blood moves through our bodies and how freely we're able to live our lives. What I'm going to share with you today contradicts much of the conventional wisdom around leg health and aging. Not because I enjoy being contrarian, but because the evidence demands it. Most doctors will tell you that heavy legs, poor circulation, cold feet, and that relentless fatigue in your calves and thighs is simply what getting older feels like. That it's structural, irreversible, something you manage rather than something you fix. That perspective is incomplete, and in many cases, it is wrong. What is actually unfolding inside your legs right now, this very moment as you watch or listen, is most likely a specific pattern of nutritional deficiency that is restricting blood flow to your muscles, your nerves, and the fine capillary networks that keep your lower extremities alive and responsive. Before we get into the specifics, I want you to think back 5 years. Could you stand at your kitchen counter and prepare a full meal without your calves starting to ache? Could you walk the full length of a grocery store without feeling the urge to find somewhere to sit down? Could you climb a flight of stairs and carry on a conversation at the same time? These are not athletic feats. They are ordinary daily activities that a healthy circulatory system should be able to support without effort. When did they stop feeling ordinary? And, more importantly, what if that change wasn't a one-way door? Let me explain what's actually happening inside your legs at a biological level, because understanding the mechanism is what makes everything else make sense. Your blood vessels, particularly the smaller ones buried deep in the tissue of your calves and thighs, are lined on the inside with a thin, continuous layer of cells called the endothelium. Think of this lining the way you might think of the coating on a good non-stick pan. When it's smooth and healthy, blood flows through effortlessly, almost frictionlessly. The vessels expand and contract with each heartbeat in a coordinated, fluid motion. Oxygen-rich blood reaches the muscle fibers that need it. Your legs feel awake, responsive, connected to the rest of you. But when that endothelial lining becomes inflamed, stiff, or damaged, everything changes. Blood flow becomes sluggish. Vessels lose their ability to dilate and contract properly. The tiny capillaries that deliver oxygen to the deepest fibers of your leg muscles begin to underperform, and those muscles start to ache and fatigue at the smallest provocation. The legs feel heavy. They feel cold. They feel somehow separate from the body, like they belong to someone older, someone more fragile than you actually are. Researchers following more than 2,000 adults over 65 for nearly a decade discovered something significant. The people in that group who maintained strong, responsive leg circulation well into their 80s, the ones who continued walking confidently, who never developed that slow, shuffling gait we've come to mistakenly accept as an inevitable feature of old age, all shared one common measurable characteristic. It wasn't how much they exercised, though movement played a role. It wasn't their family history, though genetics had some influence. The single most consistent differentiator was the density and balance of specific nutrients in their blood, 6 vitamins in particular that work together as an integrated system to keep blood vessel walls flexible, clean, and fully functional across decades of life. Today I'm going to walk you through all 6 of these vitamins. I've ranked them from the supporting players to the one that sits at the very top. The vitamin that demonstrated the most dramatic improvement in lower limb blood flow ever recorded in a controlled clinical setting. And when you reach the end of this, I think the number one on this list is going to surprise you, because it surprised me the first time I encountered the data. Even after 3 decades in this field, the sixth vitamin on the list works through a mechanism that most people have completely misunderstood for years. We're talking about vitamin K2, and it is emphatically not the same thing as vitamin K1, which most people associate with blood clotting. K2 serves an entirely different function in your body. Its primary role in vascular health is to prevent calcium from accumulating inside your arterial walls, a process called arterial calcification that is happening right now at varying rates in virtually every person reading or listening to this who isn't actively counteracting it. When calcium deposits build up inside the walls of your leg vessels, those vessels harden. They lose their elasticity. They can no longer expand and contract the way they need to in order to efficiently push blood upward from your feet against the pull of gravity. The result is reduced flow, reduced oxygen delivery, and the beginning of that leg fatigue and heaviness that millions of people experience daily. A long-running population study following nearly 5,000 adults for over 10 years found that people with the highest K2 intake had 52% less arterial calcification in their leg vessels compared to those with the lowest intake. That is not a small margin. That is the biological difference between walking comfortably and struggling to reach the second floor. The reason most people are severely deficient in K2 has to do with how profoundly our food supply has changed. Previous generations obtained K2 through butter, organ meats, and eggs from animals that grazed on grass. The conversion process that produces K2 happens inside the animal's gut and in our own gut bacteria to a limited extent. But the standard modern diet contains almost none of it. And after the age of 70, the gut bacteria responsible for converting the more common K1 into K2 begin to decline significantly, reducing even that internal production pathway. When supplementing, the form that matters is -7 Malawian kwaches, not -4 Malawian kwaches. -7 Malawian kwaches remains active in your bloodstream for up to 3 days, providing sustained protection. -4 Malawian kwaches clears within 8 hours. Studies showing reversal of arterial calcification used doses around 180 micrograms daily, taken with a meal that contains dietary fat. K2 is fat-soluble and cannot be meaningfully absorbed without it. The fifth vitamin is one that people routinely underestimate because its reputation has been flattened down to skin health and immune support. Vitamin E is actually functioning inside your leg vessels as a continuous protective barrier for that endothelial lining we discussed. Free radicals, unstable molecular fragments produced as a natural byproduct of normal metabolism, constantly assault your vessel walls, triggering oxidative damage that makes vessels rigid, inflamed, and narrow over time. Vitamin E neutralizes those free radicals before they can complete the damage cycle. Research using thermal imaging technology to measure lower extremity blood flow found that seniors with optimal vitamin E levels showed 65% better circulation in their legs compared to those who were deficient. The imaging made the difference visible in a way that was startling. Healthy circulation appeared as rich, warm tones on the scan, while poor circulation showed up as cool, dark, almost absent. The critical error most people make with vitamin E is purchasing synthetic versions from pharmacies. Natural vitamin E from food is absorbed by the body roughly 8 times more efficiently than synthetic forms. 8 times. That means a typical synthetic supplement delivers a fraction of its listed dose in actual, usable benefit. The best food sources are raw almonds, sunflower seeds, and wheat germ oil, all consumed alongside healthy fats, since vitamin E cannot cross the intestinal wall into the bloodstream without fat molecules to carry it. If supplementing, look specifically for mixed tocopherols on the label, all 8 forms of vitamin E working together, rather than isolated alpha-tocopherol, which is what most inexpensive products contain. 400 international units daily, split into 2 doses taken with meals, was the protocol that demonstrated meaningful circulation improvements in clinical trials. German research confirmed that seniors who took vitamin E with their largest meal absorbed nearly 3/4 more than those who took it in a fasted state. Vitamin C occupies the 4th position, and despite how familiar it sounds, what it's actually doing inside your blood vessels is something that most people never learn. Your blood vessel walls are held together by collagen, the same protein that provides structural integrity to your skin, your joints, and your connective tissue throughout your body. And collagen synthesis is biochemically impossible without vitamin C present. The body cannot manufacture the collagen it needs to maintain and repair vessel walls through any other pathway. Research from a leading university hospital found that seniors with optimal vitamin C levels had blood vessels that were 40% more elastic than those of deficient individuals, 40% more capable of the continuous expansion and contraction that keeps blood moving efficiently up from your lower legs against gravity. That elasticity diminishes with deficiency, and the vessels become less capable of doing their job with each passing day. The fundamental problem with how most people take vitamin C is timing. It is water-soluble, meaning the body cannot store it. It is filtered out and eliminated within a few hours of consumption. Taking 1 large dose in the morning leaves you without any meaningful vitamin C supply for the majority of the day. Smaller doses spread across the day, roughly 200 milligrams taken 3 separate times with meals, maintain a much more consistent level in the blood, giving your vessels sustained access to what they need. Kiwi fruit delivers 3 times more vitamin C per gram than a standard orange, and the way it's bound to fiber in the flesh slows the absorption process, creating a gentler, more sustained release compared to standalone supplements. For anyone supplementing, buffered forms of vitamin C are considerably easier on the stomach and better retained than standard ascorbic acid tablets. And pairing vitamin C with bioflavonoids, compounds found naturally in the white pith of citrus fruit, in quercetin, in buckwheat, significantly extends the vitamin's effective lifespan inside the body by protecting it from oxidation. The 3rd vitamin on this list is where things begin to accelerate. This is one you will likely feel working, sometimes within the same day you take it, which makes it unlike almost anything else in the nutritional toolkit. Niacin, vitamin B3, has the remarkable ability to force blood vessels to dilate within minutes of reaching your bloodstream. This produces what is called a flush, a warm, reddening sensation that spreads across the skin as millions of tiny capillaries open simultaneously, allowing blood to rush through pathways that may have been partially restricted for years. That warmth is not a side effect in the negative sense. It is evidence of the mechanism in action. Clinical research gave older adults with poor leg circulation 500 milligrams of niacin daily and measured what happened to blood flow using ultrasound technology. The improvement in circulation to the lower legs was substantial, and perhaps more meaningfully, chronic leg cramping that had been waking participants in the night disappeared entirely from many of them. Niacin works through multiple simultaneous pathways, reducing the dense, sticky form of cholesterol that narrows vessel walls, elevating the protective form that actively clears debris from vessels, and triggering the release of compounds that relax and widen blood vessels within minutes of ingestion. The flush can be intense at first, particularly in people new to niacin. The most effective approach is to begin with a very small dose, 50 milligrams after dinner for a full week. The body adapts quickly. From there, gradual weekly increases toward 500 milligrams over the course of a month allow the adaptation to keep pace with the dose. Taking a low-dose aspirin alongside niacin, as some protocols recommend, can reduce the intensity of the flush while simultaneously enhancing the circulation benefit through its effects on platelet behavior. One important note: people taking acid-suppressing medications for reflux or heartburn may be absorbing very little of the niacin found in food, because the niacin in natural sources is protein-bound and requires stomach acid to be released. Supplementation becomes particularly important in that situation. The second position on this list belongs to a nutrient that most physicians test, but chronically misinterpret, and whose deficiency is almost certainly more widespread than official statistics suggest. Vitamin D3 is, technically speaking, closer to a hormone than a vitamin. It regulates the expression of over 1,000 genes throughout the body, including the genes that govern how your blood vessels respond, flex, and function. A landmark cardiovascular study spanning decades revealed that adults over 75 with vitamin D levels below the threshold considered adequate had 80% more arterial stiffness and 62% worse circulation to their extremities compared to those with levels in the optimal range. The people with healthy D3 levels were walking distances with ease. Those with deficient levels were struggling with short trips around the block. The reason D3 is so central to leg circulation is that blood vessel walls contain vitamin D receptors embedded throughout their surface. When these receptors are activated, they trigger the production of nitric oxide, a gas molecule that acts as the body's primary vessel-relaxing signal, causing smooth muscle in vessel walls to release, expand, and allow blood to flow through freely. Without adequate D3, nitric oxide production falls short, vessel walls stay constricted, and the fine capillaries in the feet and calves are the first to suffer. After the age of 70, the skin's capacity to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight drops by up to 75% compared to younger years. This is a physiological change, not a lifestyle one. Supplementation is not optional for most older adults, it is necessary. 5,000 international units of D3 taken daily with a fat-containing meal, always alongside K2, represents the protocol most supported by current evidence. D3 taken without K2 directs calcium into the bloodstream but fails to guide it away from arterial walls, potentially accelerating the exact calcification problem K2 is meant to prevent. The two must work together. Wild-caught fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines remain the best whole food source and carry the added benefit of omega-3 fatty acids that enhance how the body uses D3. But achieving optimal levels through food alone, particularly without daily fish consumption, is not realistic for most people. And now we arrive at the one that changes everything. The vitamin at the top of this list. The one that most physicians either overlook entirely or measure using tests that are so imprecise they miss the deficiency even when it's severe. Vitamin B12. A large-scale Japanese study tracking 10,000 older adults found that correcting B12 deficiency produced an improvement in lower limb blood flow of roughly 400% within 12 weeks. Not 40%, 400. Some participants went from being unable to reach the end of their driveway to completing multi-kilometer walks. The transformation was not subtle. It was the kind of change that people described as getting a part of themselves back that they had quietly accepted was gone. B12's power over leg circulation operates through 3 separate mechanisms working simultaneously. It is essential for the production of red blood cells, the cells that physically carry oxygen to every fiber of your leg muscles. It maintains the myelin sheaths that insulate and protect the nerves controlling your blood vessels. Without healthy myelin, those nerves misfire, vessel tone becomes dysregulated, and circulation suffers at a neurological level. And it controls the body's ability to clear homocysteine, an amino acid that, when it accumulates in the blood, damages vessel walls and creates chronic inflammation that progressively narrows the passageways blood must travel through. Here is the part that no one adequately warns older adults about. After the age of 60, the stomach progressively reduces its production of both hydrochloric acid and a protein called intrinsic factor, 2 things that are absolutely required for B12 to be absorbed from food in the first place. By the mid-70s, up to 40% of adults have B12 levels low enough to produce neurological effects, many of them living with those effects without any idea that the cause is nutritional rather than inevitable. You could eat red meat every day, every single meal, and still be profoundly B12 deficient if your stomach is no longer producing what it needs to absorb it. The symptoms of B12 deficiency are a near-perfect mirror of what people have come to think of as normal aging in the legs. numbness, tingling, weakness, impaired balance, that burning sensation deep in the calves and feet at night. None of these are normal. All of them are signs of a nervous system and vascular system starving for a nutrient they are no longer able to reliably extract from food. The standard blood test for B12 measures both the active and the inactive form together, which means you can have a reading that falls within the normal range while still being functionally deficient at the cellular level. A more accurate measure involves testing methylmalonic acid levels. When B12 is insufficient, methylmalonic acid rises, and that elevation tells you what the standard test misses. Ask for it specifically if you suspect deficiency. The delivery method matters as much as the dose. Sublingual B12, tablets or drops placed under the tongue and held there until fully dissolved, bypasses the digestive system entirely, absorbing directly into the bloodstream through the dense network of capillaries beneath the tongue. This route delivers approximately 10 times more usable B12 than standard oral tablets that must compete for the intrinsic factor your stomach may no longer be producing adequately. The form should be methylcobalamin, the biologically active version the body can use immediately, rather than cyanocobalamin, the synthetic form that requires multiple internal conversion steps before it becomes useful. 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin sublingually each morning, allowed to dissolve fully without being swallowed early, is the protocol that shows up consistently in the evidence. Within 2 weeks of proper B12 repletion, most people report that their legs feel warmer, more alive. Within a month, the numbness and tingling begins to recede. Within 3 months, walking distances that felt impossible start to become ordinary again. Not because anything miraculous happened, but because the body finally had access to something it had been without for years, something it knew exactly how to use the moment it arrived. The path back to functional, comfortable, confident legs in your 70s and 80s is not paved with resignation. It is not built by accepting that decline is sealed. These 6 nutrients, K2, vitamin E, vitamin C, niacin, D3, and B12, represent a body of evidence pointing towards something genuinely hopeful. That much of what feels like aging in the legs is actually the accumulated effect of deficiency. And deficiency, unlike aging itself, can be addressed. It can be reversed. It can give you back the legs that have carried you through a lifetime and that are entirely capable of carrying you further still.